friends, and welcome back to Healing Home. We are going to deviate from our normal content this week, which is typically faith, motherhood, homemaking, that kind of niche. And we're going to expand into a little bit more of homesteading content. You don't have to be a homesteader or live on 40 acres in the heart of the Midwest to get something from this video. When I think of homesteading, I think of three key components, which are self-sufficiency, community sufficiency, and resiliency. And so if you are someone who is on a journey of any of those three, I invite you to enjoy this video. I'm recording this on a blustery and very cold January day. So if you're hearing some wind in the background, we do not have any sort of trees or windbreak around our house, so it can get really noisy. And January is actually the perfect time to be talking about homesteading, as many of us are kind of in a cold season, especially here in the Midwest, and we're thinking and hoping and looking forward to that springtime where we can get our fingers in the dirt, order those chickens, get those piglets, do whatever we happen to be doing that year. This is the perfect time to be talking about homesteading because we are longing for that spring weather so much. So today we are going to be tackling three things that my husband Danny and I have learned from our time homesteading. And when I think back, we started homesteading probably back in 2015, but we didn't know it. We started learning the self-sufficiency, community sufficiency, and resiliency skills back in 2015 when we lived in a tiny house on 5 acres, started the whole learning how to can, having chickens, exploring that kind of lifestyle. That's not what we called it. We just called it doing what we wanted to do. And that's morphed into us living here now on 40 acres and doing something, feeling kind of bold to say that we're homesteaders because we still don't really feel like we are, pursuing more of that type of lifestyle. So let's explore the three things that we have learned as we've went on this homesteading journey or lifestyle. And just for the record, since there might be some new people around here, yes, I am pregnant. I don't usually have a belly this far out. We are just getting into our 3rd trimester with baby Wayne, who is our 5th boy. And as always, there will be an accompanying blog post where you can get all the links and resources that I mention. Well, friends, even though this is a little bit different of a video, welcome to Healing Home. I hope you are encouraged and inspired by your time here.
Homesteading isn't a destination. It's a journey of discovery, learning, and sometimes laugh out loud failure. Reflecting on almost the past decade, I realized that while we've lived what many would call a homesteading lifestyle, it wasn't something that we set out to intentionally do at first. We just lived on 5 wooded acres in a tiny home completed with a charming wood stove and a flock of chickens that somehow multiplied much faster than imagined. That small beginning grew into something much bigger when we moved to the 40 acres that we live with now, with a mix of open fields and trees where the sunset seemed to stretch into eternity. Over the years, we've expanded to large gardens stocked with pantries that help us through the winter. Though we're still frequent visitors to the grocery store, we have a long ways to go in becoming more self-sufficient with that. The care of pigs, bees, turkeys, chickens, ducks, and a couple of enthusiastic puppies. Oh, and of course, the 5 children. The ultimate homesteading livestock, who are always growing, learning, and contributing. While there's so much more to achieve, this journey has taught us lessons that transcend the physical aspects of homesteading. These lessons resonate with anyone seeking self-sufficiency, community sufficiency, and most importantly, resiliency. Today's video is brought to you by Papa Bear Naturals. As a content creator, there's nothing quite like finding a company that you can align with on their practices and products. Papa Bear is a perfect fit for me and my family as we look for products that are USA made, organic, and pure. As Papa Bear Naturals grows, they are constantly adding new products based with organic tallow that is rich in vitamins A, D, E, and K. Tallow provides intense moisture It is anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial. If you have little ones, I encourage you to check out their Bum Balm, which is made from non-nano zinc oxide, grass-fed and finished tallow, coconut oil, shea butter, beeswax, and bentonite clay. This product has already been put to work in our home to heal up diaper rashes with ease. You'll also won't want to miss the luxurious whipped tallow balm and restorative tallow face moisturizer, which compete for my favorite Papa Bear products. Both products are made with a blend of time-tested natural ingredients that deeply nourishes and hydrates your skin. The restorative tallow balm specifically supports skin regeneration and elasticity, which keeps your complexion smooth and radiant. Meanwhile, the whipped tallow lotion is an all-body lotion that forms a protective barrier on your skin. Plus, the whipped tallow lotion is easy to spread and luxurious to use. Use my link for 10% off your Papa Bear Naturals order. When we first moved to our 5-acre plot, we had no grandiose plans of becoming homesteaders. Truth be told, I just wanted a wood stove, a garden to tend, and some chickens. I don't remember having a reason, it just seemed like the right thing to do. Probably behind the decision was wanting a simpler, cozier life. That tiny home was both a challenge and a delight. The wood stove became the heart of our little home, radiating warmth and creating a sense of security. Of course, there was that one time where the chimney caught on fire and I was late in my first pregnancy. I was all alone, running around like a crazy lady, trying to toss water on my roof in the cold February morning. There was actually quite a few flop stories on that acreage, but I loved that little home. Years later, we upgraded to our 40-acre property. It was a leap of faith, but the promise of space, sunsets, and the opportunity to grow was irresistible. And by the way, we went and looked at the property the day after I got out of the hospital with our second-born. We moved in about 30 days later after he was born. Truth be told, I was a wreck and have very few memories of my newborn son. However, our garden expanded and we started experimenting with raising various animals. Some years were more successful than others. We had a bumper crop of tomatoes one year and then lost most of our baby turkeys the next. Still, with every mishap, we learned and adapted. While we've come far, it's important to acknowledge that homesteading is not about perfection. It's about progress, persistence, and embracing the messiness of life. Whether you live on an acre or in a city apartment, the principles of homesteading, self-sufficiency, community sufficiency, and resilience are all universal. I've mentioned resiliency a couple times now, so why is it so important? If there's one thing we've learned from our years of homesteading, it's that a life of resilience is the backbone of this lifestyle. Resilience is what keeps you going when the unexpected happens. When storms knock out power, pests destroy your crops, or your carefully planned day unravels because a child or two needs some extra attention. Resilience is about adapting to challenges, learning from failures, and finding joy in the process. It's about building a lifestyle that is resilient to whatever adversity or challenge comes. I love using the term resiliency instead of self-sufficiency because self-sufficiency tends to have a selfish tone to it. Although it's not a bad goal, I just tend to think that the term resiliency encompasses so much more as believers as we strive to live a life that glorifies God. He has told you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To do justice, and to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. Micah 6:8. I actually wrote this verse on a big rock on our first home. It's not exclusive to those living on sprawling land. Anyone can practice resiliency by learning new skills, building strong relationships with their community, and remaining flexible in the face of adversity. For us, resilience has become a constant companion, guiding us through the ups and downs of homesteading and life itself. Lesson number 1, it all starts in the kitchen. If there's a single place where our homesteading journey began, and I think it should begin for most people, it's in the kitchen. Learning to cook from scratch was our gateway to self-sufficiency. At first, it was about practicality, stretching a budget and making the most of what we have. But soon it became a passion. The kitchen became our laboratory, where we experimented with sourdough starters, smoked meat, learned to can produce, and discovered the magic of fermenting foods. Mastering one skill at a time will always be key. I love to start milling our own grain, learn to make cheese or use raw dairy on a more consistent basis. But like I keep saying, it's a process. Those are 3 things that I just haven't done consistently or well, and there are goals that I have for the future. Learning to minimize processed food and start using more homegrown or locally sourced food is where it all starts. I really believe that. If you want to make one small step toward a homesteading lifestyle, it starts in the kitchen, learning a skill. I've loved learning about the ancient grain einkorn, which has a weaker gluten structure and has not been hybridized, processed, or tampered with in the many ways that other whole wheat grains have. Although I kind of consider it a harder grain to work with, learning einkorn sourdough has been one of the most rewarding endeavors in my kitchen. You can learn more about einkorn sourdough in my beginner's guide, and I'll put that link in the description as well. We started small, tackling one project until it became second nature before moving on to the next. Fermenting sauerkraut, for example, seemed daunting at first, but now it's a household staple. Canning was another game changer, allowing us to preserve the fruits of our labor for the long winter months. You can find more of my recipes, including preserving, at the recipe site, which I'll link. Building a bulk pantry has been another important step that I'm actually kind of weak at. We don't have a lot of bulk pantry stocked up, but again, it's another thing that we're growing in. Stocking up on staples like grains, beans, and spices have given us a sense of security and freedom when we actually do it. We also prioritized sourcing raw dairy when we can, which has added richness to our cooking and nourished our family in countless ways. These skills have not only enriched our meals, but also given us a sense of deep accomplishment and connection to the food we eat. If you're thinking about building a bulk pantry, Azure Standard is a great place to start. Lesson number 2, don't take yourself too seriously. For years, I hesitated to call ourselves homesteaders. It seemed like a lofty title reserved for people who were entirely self-sufficient or living off-grid. As we live in the heart of farming country, surrounded by multi-generational operations, it feels and felt almost silly to apply that label to ourselves. But homesteading isn't about meeting some external standard. It's about striving for a more intentional life, whatever that looks like for you. Some days we feel like we're barely keeping it together, when the freezer is accidentally turned off by a mischievous toddler, or an ambitious project ends in disaster, and that's okay. Homesteading is as much about learning from failures as it is about celebrating successes. Once I embraced the idea that we were homesteaders, flawed, learning and growing, I kind of found freedom in the term. It's not about achieving perfection, but about the process of becoming more self-reliant, building community, and adapting to life's challenges. If you've ever felt hesitant to pursue a dream or put a label to it because you don't think you're qualified, let me encourage you. Just start it and go ahead and label it. It's in the trying, failing, and trying again that growth happens.
Smile!
And our last learned lesson is be flexible. Flexibility might just be the most important trait for a homesteader. It also might seem a wee bit overly obvious, as flexibility is a universal important trait, but bear with me because I think it's important. Over the years, we've faced countless surprises, from predators decimating our flocks to unexpected weather wreaking havoc on our gardens. One particular memorable moment was when our freezer full of pork, kind of mentioned this before, was accidentally turned off by a curious toddler. That was a hard lesson in both loss and the importance of securing our systems. Early on in our homesteading journey, I had bantam chickens with a couple of roosters. I got busy at work and left the eggs unattended for too long, and before I knew it, we had dozens of fertilized eggs. My heart ached as the mama bantams hatched about a half dozen of the eggs and then left the rest to die. I did something silly and I put the remaining eggs under a heat lamp. For the record, this is 100% the wrong way to do things. Eggs need an incubator with consistent humidity levels. However, it worked, and I hatched quite a few bantam chickens. One in particular did not thrive, and I was bound and determined to keep it alive. For 2 weeks, I nursed that little chicken, and I thought for sure I had saved its life, only to discover one morning that it was dying. I held it as it breathed its last and cried my eyes out. As I was writing the original blog post and then the script, Dan and I were reminiscing about all our adventures, and that one was particularly memorable because at the time, 5 pregnancies later, and things have certainly changed, but at the time, I was not a very emotional lady, and it was one of the first times Dan saw me unravel to such an extreme point, and it was over a baby chicken. When we deal with any sort of livestock, even as simple as chickens, we will have to learn flexibility and the pain of loss. There have been other opportunities for flexibility, like when a storm toppled our shelter for the pigs, or when skunks found their way into the chicken coop. Each of these challenges required us to adapt quickly, think creatively, and sometimes just laugh at the absurdity of it all. Flexibility doesn't just apply to handling setbacks, it's also about being open to new ideas, learning from others, and adjusting your plans as you gain experience. Homesteading is an ever-evolving journey, and the ability to pivot when things don't go as expected is essential. Homesteading has been a wonderful journey for our family. It's taught us that resilience, self-sufficiency, and community sufficiency are not just ideals, but essential tools for navigating life's challenges and this type of lifestyle. We've learned that the kitchen is the heart to any homestead, that it's okay to embrace imperfection, and that flexibility is the key to thriving in the face of adversity. Whether you have sprawling acres or a small balcony, the principles of homesteading can apply to anyone seeking a more intentional, self-reliant life. Start small, embrace the process, and remember that every step forward is a victory. Homesteading isn't about arriving at a destination. It's about finding joy and purpose in the journey. If you like this type of content, I hope you'll join us over at the Healing Home channel as I release a video every single week on homemaking, homesteading, a splash of homeschooling, and anything else I decide to chat about. Thank you for coming along with me. I hope you were inspired and encouraged by your time here.